Well, welcome to another edition of Rimshots with Sean right here on Eastlink Community TV. I'm here with somebody that needs no introduction, but I will say a co-volunteer. She has a show called Destination Dartmouth right here in Eastlink. Gloria McCluskey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Sean?
I'm good. How many years have you been doing Destination Dartmouth now?
I'm not sure. Probably 6 or 7.
Right on. So, and if anybody that's not familiar with Eastlink, you can go on all the channels, and it's I guess a souped-up version of the old cable 10. It's got a lot of great shows.
Right, yeah,
it's on demand. How many episodes do you do a season when you do it?
I only do 12, 13.
That's still a good run, though. You've had some great guests on there. You were just telling us here beforehand that you had the lawyer that writes songs, and you're out in the woods interviewing a homeless guy.
Last Thursday, I had Dr. Layton, who runs the robot down at the hospital.
See it.
We went all through that, showing people.
So do you come up with the guest ideas yourself?
Yeah.
Right on, and you contact them yourself?
Right.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that's typically what I do too. And have you had anybody that said no?
No.
Well, I'll have to get some tips on that because I've had a couple issues, but I
They're
don't know.
afraid of what you're going to ask them.
Maybe. Well, we'll see where this goes. But so obviously, it's people know Dartmouth. They think Dartmouth. They think you. And when you were on council, obviously, you know, you didn't let the name Dartmouth die. I mean, they want to call it HRM, but to us, it's still Dartmouth. That's where I grew up. That's where you grew up. Always going to be Dartmouth, you period.
Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, I wrote my own obituary.
Oh.
And I have that in the end. Keep Dartmouth, Dartmouth.
Keep Dartmouth, Dartmouth. And and you know, I grew up in Woodlawn, which is really still Dartmouth, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
You know, it's grown, and I think, you know, for some ways better. Like I remember people saying downtown Dartmouth, and you're kind of like, well, I remember the pawn shop, and maybe the hairdresser thing.
Yeah, but when I came to Dartmouth in 1949, Dartmouth was a package. It had everything downtown. You know, from Jacobson's, a great clothing store.
See, I wouldn't have remembered that.
Isaac's, a men's store.
Wow.
A little Warner's little, where you went to have a dress soda.
Yeah.
And it had the 5 to $1, and everything was there. Bowling alleys, theaters, everything in that little package. And on Friday night, when you walked up the street, you kind of had to push your way through.
Wow. And so you, obviously, you know, you grew up here, you raised a family here, your husband.
I didn't grow up here.
Oh, no, okay, that's right.
I came from Eastern Shore.
Oh, that's right, we knew that the last time we talked. Yeah, good that you corrected me. Which part of Eastern Shore?
I came in when I was 18.
Okay.
I came from Port Dufferin.
Okay. So you still have family out there?
No.
Okay. Do you still get out there? Or?
I don't get out much.
No? Right on. Well, you don't need to. I mean, you're really, and we won't give away where you are, although they're easy to find, but you're literally in the middle of
Everybody knows my host, Sean.
Pardon?
Everybody knows.
Absolutely. I do. Every time I drive by, there's Gloria. Like you know, and you've always been known as somebody that takes calls and publishes your phone number,
Always.
and you don't hide, and
Always.
right. And I think that's why, you know, and we'll talk about this maybe in the next segment, but people kind of think that maybe things are tipping a little over to where they don't want to see them in terms of that customer service, old school.
No customer service.
Right.
The way it used to be. I never went to bed, but every email was answered and every phone call.
You know, it's funny because I remember my dad, his insurance agent was Nick Garapick, who was Nancy Garapick's father.
Yes.
And I remember when my dad was doing his insurance, Nick would come over, sit at the table, do the whole thing. Now it's everything just so stale, and there's not that human touch anymore.
I know.
What do you just out of curiosity, what do you think with the 311 service that they have? Do you think that it's good for the residents?
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I call it the odd time.
Yeah.
And you don't, I called about, they tore the corner of the street up down at Francis and put in a piece of sidewalk and never finished the grass. Didn't put the sod, if you see. I called 311 and reported it, but it didn't happen.
So when was it that I guess you get that, and I guess, and how was it? Was it things weren't going the way that you liked and you decided, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and get on this council and maybe start making a change?
Well,
You remember?
1985.
Okay.
I just thought, I kind of liked politics, and I thought I can get in there and make a change. And you know, every election I ran in, I knew I was going to win.
Well, you're funny because it's like
It's impossible.
every time that I heard you talking, like, man, I'd like to be like that, but I'd never get elected because I just didn't have the same thing. And you just, you know, you said what you wanted, but I think the other thing about you is you said it, but you followed through.
And people always knew how I felt about everything.
I certainly did. I tell this story all the time.
Yeah.
We invite you down to drop a puck at a hockey game, and I asked you if you needed to drive. Nope, I can drive myself. Thank you very much. I was like, okay, no problem, Gloria. Just 7 o'clock and we get you down there. But I remember where I grew up, and I grew up just behind Prince Andrew High School, and my counselor was, or well, alderman at the time was Condo Sarda. And what a nice man from Cape Breton. Oh yeah, he was fantastic.
And Betty never missed a council meeting, his wife.
Which is rare, right?
Yes, and she would sit, she and my husband would sit together, and poor old Mr. Johns never missed a council meeting. And Tom would start, and he'd say, Tom, she's watching you.
Well, and we should mention Tom was, he himself, you know, was, we won't, no, maybe the lesser known McCluskey in that, you know, a lot of people didn't know him as well as you, but he taught boxing for a number of years.
He's
coached
in
boxing.
the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. It's interesting. He's in the Canadian Boxing Hall. He's in the Maritime. He's in the Prince Edward Island, and he can't get into Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
That's politics.
it's yeah.
I made that very clear. That's too political.
Well, it is, because you know what? I know a number of people that are in there for things that are like, I didn't even know that was a sport, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Maybe that's we'll take that cause up.
They told me this year. They said, "Well, we keep his name for a." I said, "Listen, you take it out of there. You take that application out of there right now. It's all politics."
It is, and it's a shame when that happens. And I know, like, Paul Hollingsworth at one point was looking at maybe taking that job on and didn't get it.
Yeah.
You know, so we're going to take a little break because, as you know, we got to pay some bills here on Eastlink Community TV. So we're going to be back with Gloria McCluskey after this. Well, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean right here in Eastlink Community TV with my guest Gloria McCluskey. And Buster came in here. Buster is from Texas. He's Gloria's best pal, and he couldn't be a more friendly dog. Thanks for also tuning in to Friday Night Hockey, which is here Friday nights during the winter on Eastlink TV. So we were talking about you jumping in. You wanting to become
my political career.
Your political career, and you were deputy mayor. Well, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I became deputy mayor in 1991, and then John Savage decided to leave to seek the leadership.
Who did he go against there that time? Do you remember?
I don't know.
He didn't get it though, did he?
Yeah.
Did he get it?
Yeah, he became the leader after that.
So he was a first guy.
And I had to be acting mayor. I was acting mayor until September when we had to have an election.
Okay.
And 2 people ran against me, and I got 80% of the vote. So, you know, I shouldn't say this, but I was a little bit annoyed that there had to be an election.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you know, if you're doing the job, and I mean that sometimes, you know, this whole transparency thing to me, I get you. Sometimes they want transparency, but by the same token, it's kind of, if you're doing a good job, like it almost seems like you're spending money for something that's going to happen anyway.
And then the next year, I got acclaimed. I didn't have to run.
Great. And how was it at 4 years back then? I don't remember.
It was 2.
2.
And so then we just all got back in when amalgamation came, and everybody lost their job.
Well, and I mean that in itself was now they basically claimed all this, you know, the cities or whatever were all bankrupt. They had to come in here.
We weren't bankrupt. We were doing very well.
Great.
And when you look at where we could have been today, you know, we're Dartmouth. We had the park. They wanted our park more or less. And the thing was that you can't have competition between this park and the one. What's wrong with competition?
Nothing. Well, and you mentioned before we started taping that our police officers in Dartmouth were paid higher than Halifax police officers, which wasn't a popular thing.
And we really, you know, I was very supportive of our police force. Always went to everything that was going on. if somebody was leaving, or same with fire department.
Yeah.
We had a good workforce.
So amalgamation 96, it's happening whether everybody likes it or not.
No choice.
It just kind of was steamrolled in.
No choice.
And I had mentioned to you that, there's something, it still feels like in a sense they've got their toe in the water because there's still some legacy things that have never been corrected. Permits and different sorts of things. What was that time like that when they were, because obviously there was a transition of them trying to put it all together.
Yeah. It was hard on staff too, because they didn't want Dartmouth staff.
Right.
They didn't even want Dartmouth police officers.
Interesting. And yet all the Dartmouth, are pretty much all the staff are now working in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
What's up, Buster? What's the problem?
Here's somebody. Anyway.
So they didn't want the Dartmouth staff, so they're trying to put it all together. And, I guess what did that look like when it was taking place?
Well, to me, it was just a mishmash. I didn't think there was very much organization.
Right.
And, they got it together in their fashion. And that was it.
So, and I guess Peter Kelly was the first mayor, right? I was living in Toronto when it took place. Did you guys pretty much see that coming? Is that what you thought was going to happen when everything kind of went together?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? And was that just because he was such a popular guy? Because Bedford wasn't Bedford that we know now. It was just,
But what Peter did, he had allowed the people to vote in Bedford. I wouldn't do that because I knew what they were going to do with it.
Right.
So they got it and threw it in the garbage. So people, it was false hope.
Well, so you got out of it. You decided that was it.
I got out of it. I said, I don't want to run for mayor. I'm sick to my stomach.
With what happened?
Yeah, and so I stayed away until 2004, and then I thought, Dartmouth isn't being well represented. I'm going back.
Who did you replace? I don't remember.
John Cunningham.
Okay.
He was a very nice man.
Right on. But you had to take him out, right? So you got back in there. So what are some of the highlights and maybe lowlights during your period of time there when you came back?
Well, I'm responsible for having the Auditor General.
Oh, okay. We
I
like
wanted
that.
us to have an Auditor General, and there was some flack about that. Not all the council was in agreement, and certainly not all the staff. But persistent, and we got the Auditor General, which we certainly need.
Yeah. What's your feeling now on some of the developments that's taking place in Dartmouth? Are you in favor of it? For example, this one coming at Micmac Mall that we're hearing about, right?
I don't know much about that,
okay.
But the one that was out on the corner of Glenwood,
yes,
we stopped that.
Okay.
And then then he said, I'll build a hotel as of right. And I knew what the hotel would become.
Right.
It's going to be apartments.
Yeah.
But the council of the day kind of went along with them, and that's what we have. And that's a bad place for that, right on the corner there.
Pardon me, it seems like there's an awful lot of things that they've gone back on. I was somewhere the other day and I'm looking and it's like, this apartment that I'm seeing that's being built seems taller to me than Fenwick Towers over in Halifax.
They were just showing it the other night.
Yeah, so they always talked about viewpoints and they talked about, up and too much height.
And the other thing, the planning law says it should be compatible.
Right, because they went through the whole process of the center plan, which you were part of initially, correct?
Yeah.
So do you feel that they're adhering to a lot of that, or does it look a little confusing to you?
I was in full agreement with what went on in the center plan.
Right. The way Dartmouth is, Dartmouth's vibrant. We're still calling it Dartmouth. Yeah, you can call it HRM if you want, but it's Dartmouth to us. Yeah. So it's vibrant now with, King's Wharf and different sorts of things.
That was a catalyst for downtown. And he had a very tough time getting started. And he will tell you, if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have been able to move on the way he did.
Well, and I was there when he had the little office out in Bedford. He had 2 or 3 people working for him, and he had the models, and I was going like, man, it'd be nice if this would happen, but you know, it was just a vision back then. So you're right, it is very, very cool to see that.
I have a meeting with him Wednesday morning.
Oh, well, say hi to Francis because he's a big fella. Pardon me. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back after we pay some bills.
Time goes
Community
fast.
TV after this. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean and Eastlink Community TV. I'm here with Gloria McCluskey, who is also on Eastlink Community TV, Destination Dartmouth, which is on what time?
Thursday night at 8:30.
Perfect time. Perfect time. Thursday night used to be a big TV night, but there's nothing on there now, so it's another big TV night. So that's great. Tune in, and it's on demand if you can't make it that night. We were talking about a funny story because you mentioned the esteemed Dr. Savage,
Mayor, yeah.
and the televised debate that was on Cable 10 just across the street at Micmac Mall with Charlie Keating, and I remember. I don't know if you remember. Were you there when that took place?
Yes.
Charlie brought something up that he knew somebody had something on it. I remember that it was just all, oh, come on. Did you remember that when that happened? Tell us about that whole time with that election. Do you remember that election?
I never ever in any election ever looked for something
Right.
to tell about somebody.
Right.
I just talked about what I would do. I never mentioned the other people, but that election did get a bit heated.
It did. I remember.
And Charles spent way too much money.
But I mean, you know, what a story. I mean, he talked himself into St. Effects. I guess he thought he could talk himself into being the mayor of Dartmouth too, right?
Yeah.
But he did a lot of good things while he was around.
He did a lot of good
Yeah,
things.
and begrudgingly moved from his house just up the road over to by Micmac Mall, and so.
But those debates, we had one in 2012. 5 people ran against me, and I got more votes than the whole 5 of them.
You're a brand in Dartmouth,
and
really.
Sam Austin said I came second. Well, somebody had to come second.
Right.
And I remember we had a debate down at Albany, and I was next to one of the candidates. The 2 women went around telling everybody I was too old, and I was sitting next to one of them. I said something. She said, "You're mean." I said, "Shut up."
You don't mess with Gloria McCluskey. But that's why Dartmouth loves you so much, because I mean, you're fiercely protective of the brand that is Dartmouth. I mean, and I remember the old city CO, right? And you promote it every chance you get.
I do.
I hear you on the radio all the time, and you're always, it's not HRM, it's Dartmouth to me.
I still promote it,
right?
And the Discovery Halifax, or whatever it is, they referred to us as a village, which really infuriated me. We're some village. We had the best park east of Montreal.
All over the City of Lakes.
And we built it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you about I'm going back to probably 2007, 2008. I was on the Dartmouth Heritage Museum Board.
Yes.
And I got there a couple of years after they had lost their space because of the condition of the building.
Yeah, it had teared down. They tore it down.
But I know they're doing some of the stuff out of Creighton House.
Let me tell you the story on that.
Please.
When they thought Old City Hall, but Old City Hall was not suitable for a museum. So I made sure, put a motion, that the money from the sale would go toward the new museum. I don't know where that money is today. And when I left in 2016, I was told it probably would get started in 2018-19. There's never any word of building a museum. We spend about $100,000 a year renting an old warehouse space.
I've been there.
Yeah, with all those beautiful artifacts.
And some of them get destroyed because of, it's the space that stuff is in is not really designed for that, right? And I mean, people donate items, and it's amazing.
And here's Savage, the big Dartmouth boy.
Yeah.
We never mentioned, oh, I used to love it. My father used to drop me off there every day. Never mentions it being built.
Yeah, and I mean, I like I said, I was on that for about 3 years. I just found nothing happened because
nothing was happening.
Well, and the people on the board, God love them, but in my humble 2 cents, they just were never exerting enough.
No, and they're still not.
Right.
I mean, they should be yelling for the last years. Where is the museum? And then they say, well, it can't be a Dartmouth museum. Well, Halifax doesn't have. If you look at a little room up there, that's their artifacts.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't care if they called it a central museum or whatever. And down on the Dartmouth waterfront is a great spot for it.
Fantastic.
One of those parking lots down there.
Did Francis at one point offer some space up?
I don't know.
I thought I heard that, but and I mean, Star Manufacturing. I mean, I grew up with the Stanfields, and Gordy Stanfield ran that for years.
And look at that. And why don't we have a big skate up there?
Right.
And why don't we have that? Why doesn't Discovery Halifax talk about Dartmouth and what we have to offer?
Yeah, you know, and it's really funny how they kind of go out with the old, in with the new, and they always try to convince you that the new is going to be so much better, but maybe it loses some of its old charm. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
I mean, what they did at King's Wharf is fantastic. I think that's amazing, right?
That old shipyard.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, you go down there, I mean, you're 100% correct. I can remember in 2001 working on Queen Street and going like, this is nothing. And I remember when they were just starting the Dartmouth Downtown Business Commission.
Well, when I first came to Dartmouth, I lived down in Bishop.
Yeah.
And it wasn't wartime, so it wasn't very busy then, but it was busy.
So you decided to not the last election, but the election before that, you were done. You had enough.
2012.
Ever have any regrets about that?
No.
No.
I left in 20. But, well, the only thing, I left because I thought I might get ill at my age. 85, I might get ill, and they'd have to have a by-election,
Right.
which would cost $250,000. And I wouldn't do that to the taxpayers. But I could have stayed.
Yeah.
I could still be there.
Wink, wink. Because this is my personal opinion. One of the biggest frustrations for me as a musician, and I don't know how much time we have left, but I'd love to get your 2 cents on this. We have major problems downtown with musicians not being able to load stuff in, and it's always bike lanes.
Yeah.
I've got, I don't know how many tickets I've got in loading zones.
And that's terrible.
It is. Now, Councillor Mason has actually answered a couple of my emails, and he told me that.
Oh, has he?
Yep. And he told me that bars say they pay musicians enough and they don't want to put loading zones in, which I don't agree with. I think that's totally. He said it. I got the email, so that's fine. How do you think that whole thing in the downtown core is going? Because they want cars off the peninsula. It's just going to be a long time.
It is so ridiculous.
Right.
There's these bicycle lanes. Don't get me started on those. You know, in Japan, my son just came back. Tons of bicycles and no bicycle lanes.
Crazy.
Everybody drives according to the traffic. You don't hear horns honking. And here, the mess they've made.
Well, you know what? We could talk to Gloria all night, but unfortunately, she's got to go shoot Destination Dartmouth. Buster needs to go to bed, don't you, bud? So thanks a lot for tuning in this week. Thanks a lot to Gloria for being here. And we're both on demand. Her show is probably a little bit more fun than mine, but that's fine. Check them both out. See you next week.